Sziasztok! Kovács Rika vagyok, és szeretettel üdvözlök az alapított 17. előadásán. Lesz néhány ilyen közérdekű közlemény jellegű felvezetés, és akkor utána, mivel nem jelentkeztetek show-offra, ezért rögtön előadással folytatjuk. És természetesen most érkeznek a később. Szóval, először is nagyon szépen köszönöm mindenkinek, aki vette a fáradtságot és kitöltötte a kérdőívet, amit posztoltunk a Facebook csoportra és Facebook page-re. Sokkal többen töltöttétek ki, mint amennyire számítottatok, de sokkal kevesebben, mint amennyitől reméltük. Úgyhogy bárki, akinek még van erre szabad 5-10 perce, nagyon-nagyon hálásak vagyok, hogy kitöltenétek, tényleg nem vesz több időt igénybe. A másik közérdekű, amiről szeretném, hogy tudnátok, az az, hogy következő 2 hónapban nem tartunk előadást. A következő 2 alkalommal viszont mindenkit várunk szeretettel sörözésre. Tehát ez a megszokott nyári jamboree események, amikor ha minden jól sikerül, akkor ebből legalább az egyik egy szabadtéri, piknikezős, batűs, sörözős esemény lesz. Facebookon majd mindenkit értesítünk, gyertek bandázni. Az előadással kapcsolatos tudnivaló lesz 2 darab videó, amit az előadó kérésére nem szabad felvenni, ezelőtt majd szólnak is, hogy ne videózatok semmiképpen. Ez nyilván a mi felvetőanyagokban se fog bekerülni, úgyhogy nyissátok ki a személyeket, és a másik pedig a kiírásban meghirdetett ellentétben végül is az előadás nyelve angolul lesz, úgyhogy az első felvezető bemutatkozás magyarul fog történni, de végül a teljes előadás mint herben. Úgyhogy ha mindenki megtalálta a helyét, és leült, nézek itt az oldalsó emberekre is, akkor elkezdenénk az előadást. Ezúttal a DBOX-ot köszönhetitek, akik egy kreatív kommunikációs ügynökség, és az ő munkájukba nyerhetek most betekintést egy kicsit, látványtervezéssel és egyéb munkafolyamatokkal kapcsolatosan. Úgyhogy köszöntsétek őket szeretettel!
Sziasztok! Nagyon köszönöm, hogy ennyien eljöttetek, és különösen örülünk annak, hogy itt lehetünk, és egy egész széles közönség előtt mutathatjuk be a munkáinkat. Én úgy tudom, hogy itt nem csak kizárólag látványtervezők vannak, vagy 3D-vel foglalkozó emberek, és nekünk azért különösen fontos, mert mi is nagyon sok munkát és szakmát érintve készítjük el a projektjeinket. Mi a londoni stúdióból jöttünk, én Kádas Géza vagyok, senior artist és technical director. Itt van velem David Connolly, art director, és David Cairney, associate partner. Hogy megteszitek, hogy üdvözlitek őket? Köszönöm. És mivel itt hivatkoznék Rékára, és köszönöm a felvezetését, ahhoz, hogy egyben tartjuk az előadást, így az előadásnak a további részében ez angolul fog történni, úgyhogy remélem, hogy nem probléma senkinek. Bringing unbuilt words to life. This is basically the theme before I start to talk about the 3 projects we brought to you. It's the first one is from London, the second one is from Hong Kong, and the third one is from New York. But in order to give a better understanding, how did we get to build up and fill these projects with life, I would just like to give a brief history of how we got to this point to manage this level of complexity, what we usually have to deal with. In 1998, this is our first fee-paying computer-generated image. As you can see, it's a bit aged, but you have to know at that time it was particularly hard to sell the idea of generating images with computers, because most of the architectural big companies were using watercolor or using sketches to communicate their designs. This is another attempt to basically try to push the idea of generating visuals digitally and communicate architecture in a different way other than visual. 2003, this is a fashion-related image for Esquire magazine, except the model who has his CGI generated. I'm telling you, this is still 2003. So these are still the early days, and this is something that just shows the fascination towards fashion, photography, and just playing with ideas and discovering different topics. 2003 again, Daniel Lipskin's winning competition entry for rebuilding the World Trade Center. This is a really, really big moment because it's a really big thing to win a competition like this, and it can definitely spread the word about you and can put your name out there. Another fashion-related, kind of playful photograph for the Surface magazine. And I let that sink in, okay? I'll give you a minute on that picture. Basically, it was banned in Japan, so there's just no way, if you're Japanese, to put your hands on this. This is the magazine 125. Photography would be done, which is kind of, playing with the abstract idea of this kind of controversial topic. And the thing is that it's really just macro photography done from salmon. And basically there was also a lot of post work done on this in Photoshop. So probably the details are not the best here, and it's not coming through, but there's a lot of work put into it. 2008, Dallas K. This is something that's quite unique in terms of, like, first you might see, yeah, it's an island with different architecture on it, but basically this is an accumulation of really famous architects. That's why you see the phrase Starchitect Island, because it was designed by Zaha Hadid, Pierre Lissoni, Shigeru Ban, and Kengo Kuma. Since 2008, this is the competition-winning imagery for Fosters and Partners, Best Cultural and Cultural Park in Hong Kong. I think this image speaks really well in terms of combining all those elements what I showed you before. Although, like, architecture is not heavily shown in this visual, but the importance of photography and the presentation of the social life, what you can see here, is instantly kind of puts you in a situation where you don't really have to think too much, where is this in the world? It really takes a few seconds and you can say, okay, this is in Hong Kong. Visualizing dreams of unbuilt underwater worlds for the Viewpoint magazine. This is just continuing on the idea of being playful and work in a really unlimited way with the tools we have with combining photography and digital media. 2011, The Rising for the Discovery Channel and DreamWorks, and this was a turning point in the company's life, because basically this project won an Emmy Award. The actual movie that was shown on Discovery Channel was directed by Steven Spielberg, and this is where you can see the Emmy celebration, where you can see Matthew Bannister, who's our can you help me out? Founder, yeah. Sorry, you might be able to tell, but I'm not really used to like public speaking, so I have to get this out of the way. 2012, this is New York by Gary, and I think this is where things after the Rising has also really matured into a complete piece with the art direction of the model, with photography done, the aerial photography, and the architecture represented through rendering. Another New York-related image that we done from Hatta and 550 Madison Avenue. In this case, we managed only a few, finished only a few renderings here, and also this was the hero shot. And by the hero shot, we pretty much needed to create something where you can instantly understand where you are in the world. And basically, I think it speaks really well that where you are, it's in New York. And it's not just because of the yellow taxis, it's about the atmosphere. And if I would... Hello. It's died for a minute. Okay, we're back. Best timing, I guess. So yeah, we put a lot of effort into the storytelling through people and the atmosphere in order to kind of build up the world that we're supposed to show. And yeah, like some visualizing companies might use people as characters for scale. We're not shying away from like using giraffes in our images. Basically, the client came with the idea. Basically, the client was briefed us that the balconies will be so big on this building that even a giraffe or an elephant can fit there, and that's where the idea came of actually kind of showing these animals in the renderings. We are global. We are operating in 5 studios around the world, in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, London, and Hong Kong. And basically the other marks that you can see on the map are representing a job or a project that we are working on right now. So you can pretty much see it's kind of all across the globe. And yeah, I would like to finish the introduction part and thank you for your attention. And I would just give the word to David. Thank you.
Sorry, just give me a second. Thank you, Géza. So this evening I'll be talking about the Tulip, which is a new public, cultural and tourist attraction in the City of London by Foster Partners. Can I just get a show of hands first? Has anybody actually heard of the Tulip project or know anything about it? Okay. Not too many. So London, and in particular the City of London, is quite a challenging environment to submit a planning application, especially for a project as radical as Tulip. Typically there can be a lot of resistance, both publicly and politically, to kind of such contentious buildings. So to support the public consultation process, that DBOX were commissioned to produce a body of media and press-ready imagery, messaging, identity, VR and CGI still imagery to support the process. So now DBOX had a brief, but we also had a lot of problems. I just wanted to take one of those CGIs and kind of talk about the challenges that we face, particularly in regards to the photography, which was really, the whole project kind of hinged on getting sufficient and you know, proper and kind of kick-ass photography, really. So you know, you can ask yourself, how do you achieve a shot like this? It looks kind of almost easy on first glance, maybe like it's taken from a helicopter, or you know, it's quite simple, but actually it wasn't. It took a tremendous amount of planning and logistics to go into the shoots themselves. So in terms of the location, we've obviously got London here. This area right here is the City of London. It's kind of the financial hub and kind of beating heart of the city itself. At its centre, you can see the Gherkin, which was also designed by Foster & Partners, and is also owned by the same end client, J. Saffer Real Estate. As it's one of the most secure financial centres in the world, drone photography is not normally allowed. So it took us a lengthy 4 months to secure all the conditions and permits from the government and private bodies, all while keeping the project strictly confidential. Conditions on the photography including having a helicopter spotter with a clear line of sight to the drone at all times, and an elevated launch site for the drone itself. For the spotter and the drone launch position, we identified a number of rooftops in the area, but because obviously the client owned the Gherkin, and at the top of the Gherkin we've got a sky bar with 360 degrees views of London. It kind of made it the perfect location. So I think on the day of the shoot, that job fell to Géza. So I don't know if you had any cocktails but you did a pretty good job of keeping an eye out for helicopters, so it all went pretty well. Other restrictions included that the shoot had to be on the weekend to ensure that there was a limited public disruption. The drone operators we were using we also have to have their availability, and availability for the bar seriously at the top of the Gherkin, as this is frequently rented out for weddings and other high-profile events. But really our greatest challenge proved to be our old adversary, the Great British Weather. You know, trying to get a weekend where all these conditions came together was almost impossible. So the first shoot itself was kind of a limited success. We got to the site at 5:30 AM, just in time for sunrise. And although the day started off quite well, the weather quickly deteriorated and we had to abandon the shoot. These are just some kind of behind the scenes photographs of the shoot. Yeah, so with the deadline rapidly approaching, there was kind of more pressure than ever really to get this photography, because you know we 6 weeks away from the deadline, and we had no backplates for any of the VRs or stills animation, so we were kind of panicking a bit. But luckily we just got one glorious Saturday, and kind of it all came together really. So this is one of the stitches that we got back. I think we had like maybe 20 of these shots at different heights kind of throughout the day. So we were just kind of stunned really when we saw this photography. It was absolutely, the clarity kind of just blew us away. Each panorama is stitched. It's comprised of about 40 individual photographs, and the total resolution across is 30,000 pixels. So you know, when we saw this, we kind of quickly realised that we could not only use this panorama for the stills, but also the VRs and the film animation we were making, and we could kind of slash a lot of time off production and really optimise the workflow, kind of to get as much done in one image as possible. It was, you know, we kind of realised it was a really powerful asset for the studio to have on the project. So got really lucky with this one. So in terms of the initial grade, we kind of start building up the image, just some bringing out the main road arteries and kind of arterial roads. New sky swapped in that kind of matched the original one, obviously with the rotor blades of the drone. You're kind of getting that chopped off, so have to be replaced. The views then were all matched according to our 3D model, which is very accurate. It's kind of, we got it like a 100mm accuracy with the model, so that actually made the job a whole lot easier. You can see there was 4 towers added on this shot. Go back. So I got the scalpel here, which was replaced because this was quite hard to kind of retouch out. The tenants had left this light on to kind of, you know, let everyone know that they'd arrived and the scene had just been finished. Got 22 Bishopsgate here, and 100 Bishopsgate, and a few other towers. So they were all remodelled, well, modeled from scratch. We actually had to source all the floor plans and elevations from planning portals online, and build each one of those from scratch. You know, texture, light it, scatter all the office furniture and people, 3D people on the floor plates. So it's quite a lot of work involved in just those towers. But obviously it was a floor planning project, so there's even more towers to add in because we have to show the skyline as would be in 2025. So we'd like 6 or 7 more towers to add in. Model up. This one's crazy. It's kind of got like a diamond grid, so that was done in rail clone, which was great piece of software for using that. But again, just the same process. So tons and tons of detail in the floor plates. So when you're zooming in at 30,000 pixels, you can basically see people working at the desks, and it's crazy. It's the same kind of amount of detail. So we kind of knew we had something special, quite special here. So we started looking for a kind of a good crop to work with, and we knew we wanted something quite panoramic, so which would be quite cinematic, but also kind of still keep in as many London landmarks as we could. So from the left, we've got Tower Bridge, Tower of London, City Hall by Foster and Partners, the Shard, the Walkie-Talkie Building, Tate Modern, Millennium Bridge, also by Foster and Partners, Cheese Grater, 22 Bishopsgate, Nat West Tower. St Paul's is just out of shot, unfortunately. You know, we thought we'd move it, but it's kind of didn't want to take too many liberties as it was for planning. I think we did lower the height of one of those buildings just so we could see the river. So even cropped down, this image is still 12,000 pixels wide. So when Foster and Partners print this, kind of 12 meters wide, you don't really too much involved with pixelization, and it's great for them to show off their projects and explain buildings to their clients. So it's like kind of further grade on the background. So we at this stage we're kind of doing a more detailed cleanup, kind of removing construction planes, adding in flares to the context, and faking in some lights to some unoccupied buildings, just really trying to ramp up the atmosphere and bring the city to life. A new sky kind of adds a bit of drama. Everyone loves a new sky. And then kind of a base render of the tulip building itself. We kind of had to find a focal area on the image where it's not going to block out too much of the landmark buildings, but also kind of worked compositionally. So I kind of settled for that position. I think if I was doing it again, actually, I'd probably move it over a bit. That's a bit annoying. But we normally render glass render the base architecture without glass. It's kind of an old school thing to do. I think a lot of people just render the glass in, but we like to have that control in post. And in terms of the architecture itself, so the building is over 300 meters tall, which is about 1,000 foot, which will make it the tallest building in the City of London when it's built. It'll just be literally 5 meters shorter than the Shard, which is currently the tallest building in Europe. The majority of the building itself has got this kind of concrete shaft, which terminates in this glazed 12-story bulb, which has got various functions. You have like again, it's quite similar to the gherkin, same architects obviously, so the client really liked the sky bar and the gherkin, so it's kind of keeping that same motif with the tulip. You've got restaurants and levels below. It's, glass sky bridge over here that's in direct access with the gherkin, which helps really tie the whole project together with the gherkin. You've also got educational facilities on the lower levels for London school kids. You can see these kind of spoon oval shapes. There's 3 of these in the buildings, each at 120 degrees from each other. And around those there's 8 glazed gondolas that kind of rotate slowly, like almost like a Ferris wheel. And they're fully glazed, so you can kind of basically stand on them and kind of stick your head out and look down 300 meters. So it's a bit crazy. I don't think you get me in one of them. So we still kind of faked this because you get quite a harsh line here on the horizon, which the client didn't like. So we kind of softened that out. But these kind of stretched reflections really kind of, it's quite hard to fake that. I think you could, but it's kind of just takes a bit more work out of doing the image. And that's with the glass kind of set at its kind of default transparency, so kind of increasing the reflectivity on the edges. Fosters usually can be quite particular about the glass, and you have it having it glassy but still transparent and not see reflection. So kind of juggling all those adjustments, it can be quite challenging, but I think we pulled it off on this occasion. And then we add the glass gondolas themselves and some other kind of LED lighting that runs around the shafts. Again, kind of done in post because it's just a lot quicker to adjust that rather than having to re-render at 12,000K. I mean, it's only a section of the render, but some kind of renders are doing with full CG. And then we've got the final grade, which is not really much in this occasion. It kind of a bit of vignetting, bit of soft light, kind of gloom. But sometimes you add a bit of noise or sharpening, which helps kind of tie all the photographic and CG elements together, which is really important because the last thing you want is some really CG element kind of popping out in front of the page. It has to all kind of marry together really well. And then obviously the project went public. We knew when the project would be made public, we'd get a lot of press attention, but I don't think really any of us were honestly prepared for the sheer scale of the press coverage. So this image in particular, we just went through, was published in 12,500 separate print and online articles worldwide. Most importantly for DBOX, I think, was that these images are chosen by photo editors of the FT and the Guardian newspapers, and I think maybe even the New York Times, or it was kind of worldwide basically. There was basically no newspapers or websites that weren't picking this up. So I'll just finish off by showing you guys the animation piece that we produced as well. I think it's still confidential, so if you cannot record or take any pictures, that'd be great. Thank you. Film footage, we kind of shot footage for each of those shots, but when we got it back, it just didn't have that same tonal range to work with as the still images. Just got a bit more bit depth, and you don't really notice a parallax, with kind of things moving and stuff. The shots were so quick, so it kind of worked out the same. But it was good to have that footage anyway. We do actually have we brought a headset that has got some of the VR nodes loaded on, so if you want to have a test on that, we've got some links and content from the 2 other projects as well, all in VR, so you should check them out if you've got time. Thank you. I'm going to pass back to Géza, who's going to talk about, well, I'll let Géza talk then.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, this is it. Sorry, the mic feels a bit weird. You can't hear me, right? Because it's obviously it's a bit different for me. That's fine. After London, we moved to Hong Kong, and the project name is One Taiku Place. Basically, in this project, although we put a lot of effort into detail, but there was an extra level of detail added to this project because we faced with the request of the client who wanted to present this in a quite unique showroom. And basically the anatomy of that showroom pretty much dictated the level of detail that we needed to present. So we really didn't have too much choice but to dive in and force as much as possible activity and detail into the shot as possible, because you could pick it up. Every little kind of tiny, minute little thing was visible in the showroom. I will later show you. In this case, I would like to point back to the importance of photography, where we, whenever we can, we send a professional photographer to the site who does a quick scout in order to help us to understand the local lighting conditions and the materiality. And to be honest, in different parts of the world, the weather and the seasons can work in a very different way than what we got used to here in Europe. And to be able to understand the size, the colors, how the time changes in the weather is really important for us, because we're basically in London and we're working on a project in Hong Kong. By the way, it's basically the facade is fully computer generated, and all the people and the activity is basically photography that were carefully selected to show the proper, in a ways, of how the building operates on the different levels. If I could zoom in, then I could probably even show you the notes, and you could read probably the notes written on the table. So it's it went really crazy after a while. So basically, the main tower is in the middle. So this is the kind of the facade study part of it, and this is the public space under the tower. And there was a really kind of tough challenge about showing this site, because usually you can go out and rely on great photography that can help us to understand the site and reference buildings from it. And it's really a powerful tool, but time to time we just face circumstances where we just cannot go there, because it's basically under construction, just no way to take a shot there. So in this case we had to build up the complete site in 3D and just only feature photography as the background, where you can see basically the buildings over the water. This is a ground level view of the public space. It's also quite unique scenario in Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong it's basically the density of the city can be quite unnatural and suffocating. So when the client who reached out to us wants to showcase a public space like this, they want to make sure that it's represented the right way, because it's really like these kind of public spaces just hold a lot of value for the citizens who are living there, or just attract the people who work in these buildings. Yeah, so this is the crazy showroom. So as you can see, there are multiple displays basically attached together. It's all fun until you have to generate content on these kind of really weird, peculiar kind of showrooms, because it just holds a quite big problem over the different formats, how we want to present basically the site. We had to generate animation, we had to generate still images, and we were showing those, of course, like photography that was using the whole width of this circular display showroom. We are basically talking about the core space with highlighted with red. You can see these displays attached right next to each other, and usually they just like to showcase the content what we generated for for some like a limited group of people at a time, because it's actually a really kind of unique experience to kind of have this moment where the displays just feel completely your field of view, and you also have a sensation that you're actually standing there, which is quite unique and interesting. Little technical details. I don't want to revolve too much about this, but just in order to understand what were the requirements towards us to generate content to the showroom, is basically you can see the blue part is representing the flattened series of displays that while the hardware resolution is nearly 26,000 pixels, and whoever knows rendering animations in 3D, probably they understand why we said an absolute no on rendering animation on 26K. So basically we didn't want to melt down the machines or anything like that. So what we've done is also there was another constraint. Basically the other constraint was that whatever we create, speaking of still images or animation, we needed to show online. It needed to be shown in printed media. So we had to pretty much deal with this really awkward format what were we initially forced into. So that's why we got into the solution to use the white format, which is basically the green area, and the cropped HD basically represents the same kind of animation or content, but it's basically just cut it back to the good old HD ratio. So basically we don't have to generate the animation twice. Yeah, as I spoke about photography, this is our colleague Ash, but it's yeah, maybe not the best photo of him. But I just want to basically say a few words about photography. I didn't know a lot of things about how this is done before I joined DBOX, and I learned a lot of things. So basically you might think that a photographer is like, it's a really cool profession. That's all right, but because you can travel around the world and basically you can see a lot of different interesting places around the world. But I have to tell you, I learned that it's a really tough job. So you are either it's too hot for you, or it's really cold. But in the meantime, it's guaranteed that you're really tired all the time, because basically what you need to do is go out and capture different times of day, because you can feed the CGI team with really valuable reference images and backdates what we're using in our projects. As I also said, so I need to drink a little water because I'm running out of stamina here. Oh god, much better. So, this is the scenario what we usually go through. So the photography team goes to the location and giving us really valuable photography, either to use it as a background where we can just integrate to the architecture, or giving us really valuable reference images what we can use to understand how the local and the contextual architecture works, because basically this is going to be shown not just across the world, but basically they are focusing on the local and the people, and it's really important to be authentic, and the only way we can do that is to have the right reference images and really respect all these qualities of the local environment. I would reach back to the introduction part, where I talked about our fascination with fashion and photography, and it's basically, this is a little backstage green screen scenario that we had, where we custom picked the actors and the models, and we also pay a lot of attention on the clothing and the accessories and the hairstyle. So we don't really rely on a stylist who will pretty much deal with the characters. We custom pick and hire these models, and we go through a really rigorous styling process that's basically generating an authentic character, what we can use in that environment. So going back, it's going to be going a little CGI here. It's a still image breakdown. We, of course, because it was a really kind of challenging scene in terms of the CG details, we really needed to kind of, it's just like, you see, it's rather just the massing and the architecture, so really have to be cautious about like how we spend our fuel on detail. So this is just like basically representing how different stages come after each other. It is so we're adding basically we're going from large to small. We're introducing glass. We're starting to introduce characters. We introduce the main foliage bits. It's also it's not just about the architect here who provide us with the 3D models or any kind of extra detail that we need. It's that we also have to work together with the landscape architect who's feeding us with information about all the different plant species that they want to show. And sometimes it can be particularly hard to meet their expectations because whoever is working in 3D, they know that we don't always have the exact match of the different plants, but we do the best to kind of meet the expectations. So time to time we just like swap the photography if it's needed, but that's also custom. We generated water for the animation. We used Phoenix. In this case, this is also a first for me, so I really like to kind of experiment with these jobs, and I think this was the first job where it was convenient to try something like Phoenix, and I thought it was going to be fun. It wasn't, but in the end I think it paid off, because it's Phoenix can be really, really kind of power hungry if you have a certain level of detail. We introduce people. It's also, as you can probably see, it's really important how it's just not enough to show basically plants and architecture. It's the idea of kind of using the right characters with the right clothing, with the right momentum and the right intention in terms of how do they use this public space. This also just helps to kind of put this whole public area into scale. And a little kind of post work on it to spice things up. Yeah, this is a prop, so you can see the detail, what we kind of managed to generate for this particular view. Yeah, from like quick play render, we go to the geometry and introduce some materials, and we introduce our character shot in the green screen. And this is the integrated version, where everything is pretty much kind of cooked together in After Effects. So this is the wide format represented in the showroom, and this is pretty much exclusively generated for the showroom. But whenever we show it somewhere else, yeah, this is the full screen version, basically, that's stitched together from a helicopter shoot. And this is the just the regular HD kind of format that was still available, but just in order to help the client to understand how it was like a really valuable thing that we could also just show this in a way that it was, you know, didn't really have to think about how things are going to kind of operate in the showroom. Yeah, and I think this is done here, so I'm going to give the word to Dave, so he will entertain you now.
Okay, 432 Park Avenue, the project in New York. Many people have heard of this project, have seen it around. It's been fairly sort of well shared. So it's the tallest residential tower in New York. Not for that much longer. I think Central Park Tower is going to talk about it very soon. For Maclo Properties and designed by Raphael Connolly. So our sort of brief for this, what we tried to do was, how do you make CGI luxurious? And we tried to create a unique approach and create elegant market-friendly visuals. So one of the sort of early visuals for this project is here. It's not an overly sort of complicated image, but it's incredibly effective. I'm going to break this down slightly just to show kind of what goes in behind this image and kind of the thought process, and using these sort of ballet dancers that we went for. So the most complicated part of this sort of whole suite was probably the idea, coming up with this sort of elegance of the ballet dancer, and then shooting them in the sort of studio setup. This was the shot that we used. Choosing the pose, there was obviously hundreds of photos taken. This one was the one that we kind of chose, but the lighting, getting sort of the wind sort of working correctly, picking up things like the reflection photography, anything that we need for that. We then place it into our 3D scene, incredibly basic 3D scene. I'm sure some people might fall off your chairs to see an Omni light down here, if you remember what one those are. Yeah, so that's basically the setup of that image. We go into the backplate photography, capturing the sort of New York skyline. Do our post work, new dramatic sky, and then we sort of start to complicate 3D and photography. We place in our model, the ballerina, and then we start to work in a little bit of post. So this is where we get the reflection photography that we captured, get that placed in, shadow, bit more sort of levels on her sort of outfit, and then the final atmospheric scene. It's just been an incredibly sort of successful style on the image for this project. That basically led onto a series of images following suit. It's got a certain elegance about it. I mean, I love this image. It's that kind of classic sort of ballet pose with classic architecture. It's like she's sort of dancing above Central Park. I think it's great. And then we get on to another one where, again, we had to decide to change the outfit to obviously sit in with the background and the atmosphere of that image. And then we start to see fully generated CG scenes, but with the well-placed talent. And this really starts to talk about that sort of aspirational lifestyle is exactly what we're trying to achieve with these set of images. But it's also a large set of images that ran through, so they all start to tell that story. And again, this one fully CG, just with some talent sitting in the car. And what's interesting is that even though a lot of the images that we did for this project cover the living areas and the kitchen and various furniture and bathrooms and all sorts of the really sort of high finishes that they have in their apartments, some of the most impactful images were these sort of dancers in the windows and ones like this, which really tell that story. But then obviously on the larger scale of the project, we have the sort of hero image, places, the tower, New York. It's again going back to our sort of start where Géza was explaining, all based on great photography. So we get that, we get the perfect light, and then the simple part is kind of placing the tower in sort of situation. I mean, this one's great. It kind of, I think, it has a certain correlation to the ballerina, sort of that lady sort of dancing in the window. I think it's incredibly powerful. And then we look at the sort of overall sort of marketing campaign, and we use all the CGI content. We use the photography that we've captured. We look at interviews of relatable people, and then we look at obviously the product. So we're using sort of luxurious real estate to sell by using luxury brands, and that was really kind of the success on this campaign. And when you think about this project and the type of client who is really going to be of interest in buying one of these, this is the type of thing that really talks to them. So it was, yeah, very successful. So the next thing was to bring it to life. So we created a film, as seems to be a lot, and we started off with a storyboard. Got the ballet dancers back to do the green screen shoot, all choreographed, all styled. Get a bit more close up with the styling, makeup. And then we also managed to get Philip Petit, who very famous for his audacious sort of art show that he put on in New York many years ago. Man on Wire was a documentary that he created, that was him many years ago, tightrope walking between the Twin Towers. There's his film, I recommend it, very good. And then we had this great idea of using it to feature in the film, and maybe at the start, well, you'll see this in a minute, we're going to show the film, but walking between, tightrope walking between the Empire State, and then maybe coming towards our tower, which was incredibly powerful. So we have another film to show. I told you that was going to be quick.
Yeah, and sorry, this is the other one that's confidential, so please don't take images.
Hello, so I'm Martin Györökis, organizer of this event too. So now is the Q&A section, so if you have questions, so this is the time. So who became first? Kérdésetek van, akkor nyugodtan tegyétek.
Thank you. So you have 5 studios worldwide, and you do all the CG, all the Photoshop, all the rendering and everything in those studios, so no outsourcing, you're doing everything by yourselves?
Yes, we don't outsource, we like to keep all our sort of talent in sort of house. Yeah, so all the studios are fully functional in that respect.
Okay, thank you. And how many artists are working at those studios?
Oh, artists. I know there's on the site 88 people across the studios, artists. Well, that's a good question. We've got about 15 in London in our studio. Yeah, similar in New York, a few less in Miami, a few less.
So more than half, maybe.
Yeah, it's predominantly it's quite CG sort of background, so there's a lot of CG artists. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I would like to ask, it's quite complex. So you get this project, okay, we have this building, please make the commercials for it. And I know work is money, but when you make a commercial, a good stuff for a building, it's also your responsibility if it will be built. So will you usually choose about, yes, I can agree with this building, and I can leave after if they will build it because I made my job good. So I sell this building. So will you usually sort the jobs or you just do everything? Do you understand what's my point?
Might have to. So do we? You have to. Can you repeat the end bit?
Do you feel responsible for the architectural quality that DBOX represents?
Yeah, we're quite lucky on some of the projects that we get that with the clients that we have that we can. We work on some quite high-profile buildings and things that we get the chance to sort of visualise and which get built, and yeah, it's our responsibility to visualise them and represent them in the true light, and obviously for what the client wants. What was the other thing in your question?
No, I'm asking about, because you basically sell this building for the people, so if they see these commercial pictures, they will vote or something. So yes, we should build this because this is looking amazing. So this is basically also your responsibility if you choose a project to make this, because sell something, I think it's half about this type of work. So you can sell the not nice building also, or not good building. So usually, did you select this? Do you have this luxury to select and say, yes, I can live with if they will build it after I had this good marketing work? Or you just take every job and doing everything? So do you feel this? Because you understand.
Yeah, I mean, so there are the ones like the Tulip, which wasn't necessarily going to be built, and obviously it's up to us to represent that, and it goes out to the client consultation, and then in the end, yeah, it gets planning permission, and then gets built. Quite often, some of the projects that we're working on are already that far along that they're going to be built anyway, and it's more stuff for the marketing suite to sell to the potential client and the buyers and various other bits. But yeah, like the Tulip would be an example where it's more the planning stage, so it's full trying to represent it and show it in its best light for the property developer.
I think in regards to Tulip as well, that in London there's very stringent laws over planning. There's actually firms that specialise in very technical renders, and really when anybody makes a decision on a building like that their decision is made upon those renders and not the kind of marketing ones. So it's they give a very realistic and kind of honest representation of what it will look like. So kind of we also try and choose best angles and best lighting to kind of facilitate and help our client, but that there's only so much kind of influence, I guess, that they would have in that planning circumstance. Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Sorry, I think the question was whether has it ever happened that you said no to a job because you didn't agree with the architectural integrity of the project? Do I need it? Sorry. Can you hear me? So the question was, I think, just trying to translate between English and English, sorry, is that has it ever happened that you said no to a project because you didn't agree with the architecture that it represented, or the concept of the project? Or you don't really judge the architecture that the DBOX does visuals for, and you try to do the best image?
Yeah, I think generally we get approached with really high-end architecture. It's really beautiful, so I don't tend to have that problem with bad architecture.
You're a very lucky company.
Yeah.
Anyone wants that?
Yes. Hi. My question is, so did you use softwares developed by the company, or what kind of softwares do you use?
So generally for the CGI, I think our go-to is 3ds Max. For rendering, we mostly use V-Ray and Corona. It's pretty much the artist's decision in terms of like what software they want to use for that particular project. For animation, we pretty much we don't use anything too exotic in terms of the After Effecks, Premiere. What was it? SynthEyes was the one that we used for camera tracking, right? I think I'm not really super involved with like tracking and animation, but I think it was called SynthEyes, as far as I know. But basically, we're really kind of lucky with some like talent working in different studios. Basically, named Steve Chappell, who's kind of providing custom tools and script that can really help to automate and put some oil on the gears on different processes that usually quite kind of laboring to kind of deal with. So pretty much like we are kind of developing custom tools for the different studios that essentially are rolled out basically everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, fantastic presentation. I have one question that is more of time management related. That you only spoke about the drone licensing in London. That took like 4 months. But how long does a project take from start to finish? I'm talking about the photo shooting, the 3D render part, and the final composite. How long does each of these stages take?
Oh my god. Long we got. It's actually an impossible question to answer because each project we work on is so incredibly different. I think that's one of our skills is to be able to switch from luxury interior to something like a tulip to an underwater restaurant or whatever. So yeah, I mean with regards to the tulip, and we weren't working on that. I think we were working on it basically for about a year from really initial concept renders through to what you saw on the screen. But we were kind of helping fosters at the start with design studies and using kind of old aerial photography that we had of London. So we didn't really have any kind of fresh stuff to use. So each of those phases would take maybe a couple of weeks, just to kind of generate 2 or 3 CGIs maybe at that stage, because it was just kind of. That's all required really at that stage, and we were also generating VR content. But then they would go away for a month or 2 and kind of redesign and show it to the clients, and I don't like that, redesign it completely from scratch. So come back and then basically go through the process again, and gradually there's a kind of design that evolves out of those studies, and it was really interesting to see actually when the lead architect for the project put on the VR headset for the first time. He's I kind of generated these cameras pretty quickly, so I didn't really have time to test them. We had like half an hour before we turned up. And he kind of put them on, he's looking around, he's like, oh, it is because there was a big beam kind of sticking out. And I was like, yes, because that's like really true. It's kind of, to get that reaction from the guy who's actually designing the building was fantastic, just have that realism. So that was kind of the design process going through. And then as more kind of meat went onto the project, and it got really kind of a proper design model and drawings and information, then we kind of gradually add on more artists. We kind of knew we had like a deadline. I think it was end of October, so we were already in discussion with Foster's that they were going to lodge a planning application. So we were quite fortunate actually to have that foresight, or well, the kind of information to plan ahead, resource decide which artists you want to put in the job, just kind of really plan everything. Yeah, I think if we, Foster just rang us up kind of 2 months, 3 months before the deadline without having any prior experience with that project, it might have been a different story, because we really helped having those initial stages when we were able to get our London model together, model all the texture and the context building, and take that pressure off the final delivery, because really, the animation, everything, all the assets, all the kind of deliverables were coming at one stage. So you've got like 16 CGIs, some of them were like 15, 20k wide, huge kind of panoramic scenes of London, 9 VR nodes which were incredibly complex. I mean, it was just mind-boggling trying to put those together. And then the animation, which kind of changed quite a lot in the last couple of weeks, so it's just all hands on deck. And I think in the last couple of days, almost everybody in the office was doing everything. Even Mark was adding a few flares on the Photoshop, and everyone was just diving in and helping ahead. And it was a great, real team effort that got it together. So it doesn't it's not like one huge team that kind of starts from the beginning, kind of ramps up. It's really kind of almost an organic process, and you kind of make that call. So it's quite a difficult question to answer, but I kind of hope that kind of answers it.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Right, thank you.
I have one other question. When you use drones, do you capture like a photogrammetry of the area that you like to design?
I wish we could. Yeah, not at the moment, no. But that could be something we're looking at in the future. I think that'd be a great asset to have, just to be able to not only get photography but also the geometry. That's obviously coming at some point down the line, and we'll be keeping an eye on that technology as we do all kind of technology. But just kind of a biting point for that kind of stuff. At what stage you get into it, because you get into it too early, and there's 5,000 other companies developing the same technology, and you have to kind of just find the right time to get into it, where you're not wasting too much time trying to troubleshoot and problem solve all this stuff. Because it's just a real headache of being in studios before I've done that. It's just waste so much time. So it's kind of a skill in choosing the right time to get into that a niche, area of photography. Maybe I could be wrong, but I'll probably go home and Google it tonight and just like to see what's the latest kind of technology on that. But we do that's one of Géza's role actually is trying to constantly scouring the internet, for latest plugins and all sorts of kind of technical challenges, really exploring real time and VR and stereo photography, and but we also got quite a large photography team. Usually the first guy to start a company is signing up the company up a new base is often a photographer as well, so that we got somebody on site to kind of capture the photography that we need of that particular area. But it's a great idea. I hope it comes along pretty soon and just make our job a whole lot easier, I think.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really awesome. I would be interested how you set up a team for such a project like the last one in New York. If you have specialized artists for certain eras, or you have a team where your artists work as a one-man band, and how many artists do you have in a team for this kind of project?
We don't really have so much specialised teams. We have our areas of photography department, but all our artists basically we're expected to be able to take an image
start to finish, and be involved as well in any area that they wish to be in. If they've got a stronger skill set in the photographical side, then go on the green screen shoots, or if they're on the animation side, then they'll get more involved in that. But it's not really not really specialised areas. We have obviously just members in our team that have specialities, but they're all very much well-rounded and expected to take any image start to finish, really. But yeah, but we rub off on each other. Like Géza is incredibly talented at modelling and other sides. So when it comes to those aspects of image, then Géza will smash it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone? Question?
Somebody? Okay. No one? Okay. So, thank you for coming. And it was a really great presentation. Thank you. And we have a small present for you guys. So, please help me. Now, hopefully you like wine. It's Hungarian wine. So. And it's the Art Network stuff. So. Label, yes. And after the presentation, we are going to the WRK, which is a bar where we generally continues the networking stuff and drinking stuff. So if you want to join, please welcome. And that's it. And of course, if somebody wants to help us to bring the chairs there, it's also welcome. Thank you. That was the Art Network today, so enjoy the evening.